morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's the Friday Fix with myself and the AlphaPicks team. Well, I hope me and the AlphaPicks team. I'm here. Michael Brown's here. Maybe we'll do a second morning blast. Before I tell you what, whilst waiting for them to turn up, let's get the legals out of the way. So, as usual, nothing discussed on this space session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PiQ Global Limited, trainers PiQ or PiQ Suite, or indeed the hosts, which at the moment is just me. But I'm rest assured, I think Alex and Jay will be here. Oh, there they go. Timing. I was getting a bit nervous for a second. Invite to co-host. Send co-host invite. Then do it for Jay as well. Invite co-host. Send co-host invite. I think that's worked. Oh, it's the dream team. It's almost like we were
Dream
out last
team.
night then. Hello.
Phew. So just confirm, Jesse.
Afternoon.
Jesse did catch the last train
Someone
home.
sounds a little bit rough.
Nah, we're all good.
Delightful. Well, a beautiful way to end the week. A sunny day,
What?
good vibes.
You know
Equity
what?
futures clinging on for dear life.
Yeah,
What a time
right.
to be alive.
Poor old Michael Sayer, like basically telling people to sell organs to keep Bitcoin afloat.
Literally, I said I tweeted about it today, and I sent it to a couple of friends of mine as well. I'm just saying, like, I don't know how anyone can believe this guy isn't completely unhinged. That
No,
he's running, he has control over this essentially glorified leveraged Bitcoin trust that's somehow in a format of a public company, and
yeah,
yet
right.
has the ability to tweet out, "Sell a kidney and hold your
Hey,
Bitcoin." I mean, it's
like,
like, yeah.
I'm waiting for Conks to like tweet the there's an organ donations pod going tits up at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Rumors of.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it, but it reminds me of the whole Musk like taking Tesla private at 420 funding secured thing, where like the regulators were like, "Hang on, actually, you can't say that." Like, I mean, I don't know whether
But you know,
it's a similar
funny you say,
case to say that.
I was getting Raoul Powell vibes when it was like irresponsibly long. I'm like,
Yeah,
how long are you?
yeah.
Well, I'm selling organs to keep it bid.
To keep the funding going. Yeah, it's just a very strange one. I don't know. I mean, look, I mean, I think everyone knows my thoughts on my strategy. Like, I mean, it's not something I'll be touching with a barge pole anytime soon.
Yeah,
Um,
not with stolen, not even with Jay's money.
no, exactly. And because the other thing was, I was reading like 2 or 3 months ago, and I'll try and dig it out again. One where someone had basically run the numbers on at what point, if Bitcoin did see a significant correction in the short term, like at what point the sort of enterprise value of MicroStrategy
Like
becomes
the
negative.
intrinsic assets kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah, exactly. And I think, don't quote me, but I will dig it out. I think 55K was the number that was sort of banded around.
So in my
And
head, I'm
yeah,
like, so it's like, so what are your assets if Bitcoin goes to? Well, we've got a few Herman Miller chairs.
yeah. And all those 0% convertible bonds, I'm sure, look
Oh yeah,
real
yeah,
juicy right
exactly.
now, right? Yeah, yeah. Try
Nice.
explain that one to your boss.
Yeah,
Um,
absolute crazy.
but we'll start the week actually with more traditional,
Yes,
level-headed
please,
investors.
please.
Um, a mutual friend, I'm sure, of both of ours, Mr. Warren Buffett.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh, was her?
big was.
Big
You're always down in
was.
Omaha, aren't you, for the AGMs? So they it was the start of this week really. On Saturday they released their 2024 results, but obviously it was Monday, Tuesday when things got digested.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that stood out to me was yet again an increase in cash and cash equivalents to a whopping
Huge.
334.2 billion. And that cash pile has basically doubled in a year. And what spoke to me, and interested to get your take on Buffett and all of this jazz as well. What stood out to me is that when you say cash and cash equivalents, we're talking a lot of this is in short dated treasuries.
Yes.
And it's like, because yields have remained quite stubbornly high, and Buffett could be picking up over 4% on the
Yeah.
2-year treasury, is that opportunity cost and that sort of risk-free rate. Yes, he wants to be in equities, and yes, he wants to find stuff to buy, but I think part of his problem is justifying taking money out that's earning 4% risk-free and finding somewhere to allocate it with a decent enough risk reward to
Yes.
justify going forward. And I think that's one of the unwritten points related to his super high cash pile at the moment.
Yeah, no, and I couldn't agree more. As usual, a complete agreement with your very good self. And I think
Mm,
he's been in this longer than most people, and the thing he does very, very well is he will keep cash on the side, and which means should something occur or an opportunity present itself, he's got cash on hand to throw it, and the whole like when there's blood on the street, buy
mm,
stocks or buy property thing. And like you said, he's getting 4% on his cash, and it's a shit ton of cash. You know, very sound investments that he does make. Well, the company makes. You can't fault it. And it does
mm,
make me laugh when people are like, oh, so and so's outperforming Warren Buffett. Yeah, all right, over a 6 month or over even a 2 year time frame. Yeah, great. But you try doing it over
mm.
over 50 years.
Yeah, you're gonna struggle. So if you're Buffett right now, cutting to the chase, and you're sitting on 300 odd billion in cash, and you've seen the moves over this week in terms of just large cap US
Yeah.
equities, um, is it at this point you're starting to dribble in some cash, or are you still, if you're Buffett, you're still sitting on your hands and you're thinking, let's see where we go in the next few weeks?
Well, PIQ is currently in a funding round, so I'd stick it all in there.
Yeah. 300 billion would go a long way, eh?
Yeah, well, I'll stick it behind the bar.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I'll be very honest. What, why? I think he's doing well. You can't argue with the guy, right? Is
Mm,
what would I do different? Absolutely nothing. I would love to be in that position. You know,
mm,
again, I think it's all for him. It's just all about buying opportunities, isn't it? It's what not annoyed me, but what kind of irked me a little bit is obviously there was as people were digesting it, it was obviously he got out of all of his or all of Berkshire Hathaway's S&P equivalent ETFs. Um,
mm,
and people were like, that's a sign of him like not having faith in the stock market. It's like they couldn't be further from the truth.
mm.
It, it's a, I don't know. It's everyone's what is it? Armchair generals. Everyone's a general after the battle kind of thing. But
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
but
exactly.
what would you be doing then? Like what, you
Yeah, I mean, I think
all on
one of the
black?
interesting ones was he's looking more outside the US. So one of the
Yeah.
ones was he really chunked up his investments in a lot of the Japanese trading houses, which I
Yes.
know he's been a fan of for a while.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's I don't know. So please educate me. What's the thesis then behind his love of Japanese trading houses? Because that's been like an ongoing theme for many 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 years.
It has. Yeah, yeah, agreed. So I think he's kind of like, part of it is the diversification of some of the sort of conglomerates, if you like. 'Cause, we're talking about like, Mitsubishi and those type of ones where it's like they have very diversified income streams,
Yeah.
and I think that's sort of one of the things that Buffett likes, um, and I think the other part of it is that well, I mean, this is me speaking on behalf of Buffett, but I
Yeah.
think
Big
I
was.
think for some extent, Buffett is a traditional value investor,
Yeah. Exactly.
and he's looking for value across the board, and
Yes.
if he can't find it in the US in recent years, which he hasn't really because of the valuations, somewhere like Japan has been an attractive place based on the valuations to go for them.
Right. Yeah.
Um, that would be my take on it. I mean, obviously he popped some in old dominoes, didn't he? You see that one probably like
Oh yeah.
6 months ago, which was again is kind of like, I mean, is that a value play? I'm not sure,
Well,
but
this is the thing.
yeah.
Like occasionally, like he does, like you hear that they've just lumped into some like random company. You're like, how is that even on the radar?
Agreed.
But
Um,
ours isn't. Let's not question him. Obviously,
yeah.
I'm sure he's got a reason. It's not just having a random pun.
I think you should do some loss leading strategies on dominoes. I think that would be my take. Free Fridays, free large pieces on the Friday. Anyway, but that's Mr. Buffett done and dusted. The next big one, which sort of kicked off on Tuesday and has obviously accelerated, overnight, is obviously the move in crypto.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin, as I look at it now, trading just above 80,000, and that has come down significantly from, well, Ryan, you'll be able to tell me, well, about 95k at the start of the week, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we've seen that very sharp retracement, and as all things crypto, I'm not claiming to be an expert whatsoever. And can you allocate some of this to a general risk off mood in markets? Yes, I guess you can.
Yeah.
However, it's a lot of the ones, and I think Michael Brown, I think one of my favorite tweets, Michael Brown, which I think still has pinned, was finding a narrative to fit the
Yes.
price
Oh, it's
action.
so true as well. The amount of times that I keep going back to that pin tweet. We don't
Yes.
want to. We were out having a beer with him last night, so we don't want to blow too much smoke up his ass. But the thing is, it is so true.
Yeah, and I feel that's the case at the minute with crypto in general. People
Yeah.
are trying to find a narrative to support this sell off, and yeah, I couldn't tell you really feasibly what is the underlying driver behind this, but that actually speaks to me in terms of when you don't know. And something I've always tried to do with trading is that if you don't know the reason why something's moving, don't touch it, because
Exactly
like
that.
it's
Exactly.
just you don't know if that underlying reason, you don't know where that fits in, if that's a 10% drop, 20%, whatever, and until you can quantify what's caused it and then making your own mind an assessment of where that sits in the long term, trying to buy a dip here, I just feel like
Yeah.
you're playing with fire.
And I think you look at the chart and stuff. You can see there's so much. And the thing is, you can say this basically at any price level, but all around that like 90 to 100,000. There's so much weak length in that market, which is why when we did start breaking lower, which is obviously why the momentum built up, because there's crypto is probably the most over leveraged kind of plays anyone makes, because obviously everyone's trading on leverage accounts, everyone's trading on margin accounts. So when it does go, I think that's when why we see such aggressive moves to the downside, when it starts breaking out and forcing people's hands.
Mm,
At the end of the day, it's like sometimes like keep it simple, stupid.
mm,
There's so much weak length in that market that when it all starts hitting the fan,
mm.
everyone's bailing.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I mean, as a slight correlation across that, there was one sorry from this morning about Tesla's drop, which we can talk about as well if you want to. But basically, part of the accentuating move in Tesla was actually from the South Koreans, who
Yeah,
apparently have been chunked up in obviously leveraged Tesla ETFs. And yeah, even if you're in just a 2-to-1 leverage or a 3-to-1 leverage one, that a 40% move in the past month on Tesla stock
see you later.
is a real see you later, isn't it?
It really
And
is.
so yeah, the dangers of, I agree with you, Bitcoin on leverage, and even some of these big popular retail names on leverage ETFs, it
Ah,
just caused a larger move.
Al, am I going crazy, or did we not, me, you, and Jay, did we not at the start of the year? Didn't we have a Tesla versus the S&P kind of thing going on? And I was like,
Yes.
I think the S&P is going to outperform Tesla. I think Jay took the other side. I can't remember what you said, or it might have been me and Jay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, actually, I think me and Jay said the uh, Tesla's going to underperform the S&P, and I think you took the other side just because, we needed someone to make a market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, and because also pretty much. So I think it was like the day before the election, Tesla was trading just above $250, and it closed yesterday. I think it was 288 or 290. So we're pretty much have erased all of those election gains.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean it's a crazy one. I mean, we bought Tesla ahead of the presidential election in our portfolio, and obviously rode up nicely and ended up cutting it at the start of this week. And I was pretty frustrated, even though it was a profit we locked in. It's very frustrating when you see this real swift unwind of
yeah,
moves,
yeah. Yeah,
either in
exactly.
index
It
or
was
individual
so
names.
aggressive. It's like, it's like, like give me a break.
Yeah, and also in terms of tweets, we're talking about pinned tweets. Lord Fed had a great one. I think it was yesterday, where he was basically saying that all the bears that were short to start the year have been stopped out, and all the guys that got long in the past few weeks have been stopped out.
Yeah,
And
right.
so
It's
it's
like,
kind of like,
is
thanks
anyone
for
won?
playing.
Has there been any
Yeah,
winners?
yeah. So yeah, it's one of those fronts. Um, and then one of the reasons to add into the mix of the broader equity correction obviously came on Wednesday with Nvidia earnings, which is always a huge event given
Yeah,
the market cap and the
just
implied
because.
moves. Just because, I mean, yeah, you don't need to give too many reasons behind it, do we? And yeah, I thought it was interesting because yet again, Nvidia, on the face of it, like they're strong results. Like they get the one that stuck with me is Tesla. Nvidia produced as much free cash flow in full year 2025 as it did revenue in full year 2024, which,
Jeez.
when you think about it, is absolutely insane.
It's mad. Yeah, it's absolute madness.
And they're still killing it. You could argue their data center revenue is a bit concentrated. I think now is 90% of sales comes from
Yeah.
that division, but the business is still doing exceptionally well and growing at an insane pace. But as we have spoken about this several times in the past 6 months, is the bar and the benchmark from Nvidia really just gets higher and higher, and I
Exactly
feel,
that. Exactly
yeah,
that. But funny enough, like
yeah,
Michael Brown, God, again, stop blowing smoke up his ass. But Michael
God,
Brown said this the morning after the results. He was like, "Look, you cannot expect like these, this growth to carry on happening. Yeah, it's great, but you know, you can't, have the margin. What is it, 75 something percent margin? It's like that's
mm,
insane.
mm.
But but it's just an accounting scam apparently.
Yeah. Well, I know, but you saw, and then obviously yesterday they were down, I think 8% on Nvidia stock. So it's kind of like there is this inflection point, which I feel actually probably has happened now, where the benchmark has just been set too high,
Yes,
and no
yeah,
matter
exactly
what
that.
they were going to put out on Wednesday, it was always going to be slightly underwhelming.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
it's like I said,
yeah,
I think it was like 45 minutes before the earnings came out. I was like, it just reeked of, you could know the earnings ahead of time and you would still lose money on the trade because it was just carnage.
mm,
Genuinely, it's like non-farm payroll. You could tell me the non-farm payroll number an hour ahead of time. You still don't know what the market's going to do because you don't. It's absolute bonkers at the moment. But like you said, the bar for Nvidia is so high. It almost feels like they won't do anything on an earnings release. It's gonna drive the market higher because the expectations are so high.
yeah, yeah. And the other interesting snippet from it, he did talk about DeepSeek, and
Yeah,
basically praised it, said it was absolutely world class, was his exact phrase.
was that a
And
quote?
yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, sounds like he was down, down West Down on a Saturday, absolute world class. But no,
Yeah,
it wasn't. He was talking about a complex Chinese, reasoning system. Um, but he didn't see much of a problem with it because he was like, look, more chips are going to be needed going forward,
exactly.
which I think is completely reasonable.
And do you know
So
what?
yeah.
Hats off to the people that when we got that massive shank on in Nvidia on the Deeps when DeepSeek first got like announced. Obviously, Nvidia took an absolute beating, and there was a good few people out there going like, I think the market's completely I think participants are completely misreading this. This is actually a good thing for Nvidia because the
Mm,
more accessible AI is, the more chips you need, and
mm.
yeah, and hats off to the people that called that. To coin of I think it's normally Conks that comes out with this. Generational buying opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think talking sort of AI more broadly, actually, is a piece I put out this morning, which I don't know if Jay can tag it on here, but was from a tweet earlier this week that I saw about how the next stage of the AI race is how quickly companies can cut their committed AI capex,
Right.
which was basically from the story early in the week where Microsoft was rumored to pull 2 data center leases.
Oh,
Um,
is that was the, like rumor like pulling out of like the Stargate idea or whatever it was. Is that the related thing you're on about? Because I saw
uh,
some rumors, but I wasn't really sure if it was just bollocks or whatever.
Yeah, so this was, so I don't know if it was that one, but it was basically it was a TD Cohen put out a note saying that they're pulling out 2 leases of data centers, and no one's exactly sure on the underlying reasons behind it.
Right.
um but one of the arguments that can be made, which I actually think is potentially valid, is that particularly with the rise of DeepSeek, etc., companies have gone from literally a couple of months ago being like, yeah, we're going to spend, I mean, Microsoft said they were going to spend 80 billion on data centers this year alone. Everyone's
Yes.
ramping up this AI capex, but really, the in the past month, I would argue, and especially with the jitters we're seeing now, investors are actually more concerned about efficiency, AI generating tangible
Yeah.
profits for a business. And I do think it's a reasonable argument to make that in the coming months, all of this committed capex, you might see revisions say, actually, do you know, we're not going to spend 80 billion on that anymore. We're cutting it to 50 billion because we believe we can do, like with DeepSeek, we can build and train
Yeah.
models with a
Quality over
smaller.
quantity kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Because I
Yeah.
remember, it was a few weeks ago on our Friday Fix, we were talking about, there was that whole rush of all these big companies, it's just putting out statements saying, "Oh, we're going to invest X billion over the next 4 years," and it almost felt like. I remember we actually said it's like companies that were coming out and saying that we're going to like increase capex 100 billion over say 10 years or whatever. That was a bullish indicator. Like stocks were going bid on that news, and like you said,
Mm,
now it's almost like completely pivoted, and it's like, well, hang on, rather than just say, "Oh, we're going to throw 100 million at the wall and see what sticks." Because of the likes
mm,
of DeepSeek and how it's become more kind of accessible, you're like, well, potentially you don't have to do half of that. Or
yeah.
I'm not technical. I have no idea how much you need to spend, but it kind of does feel like the game has changed, like somewhat, literally in the
Mm.
past week or so, 2 weeks.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it's a shift towards AI efficiency rather
Yes.
than just headline AI
Yeah,
spend.
right.
Yeah.
But like genuinely, it was like, right, here's 100 billion. We're just going to throw it at AI and see what happens. But like now, it's like,
Yeah.
hang on, what are you actually going to do? Do you actually need to spend that much? And I think it's, and the thing is, it's, I think the next, well, I say in the next year, I think that's going to be the game going forward. And I think we're going to see so many advances, almost monthly now, that
Mm.
it's an incredible one to be a part. It's just an incredible time to be in Marcus and kind of discussing this.
Yeah.
Again, if you're sitting, if you're, Microsoft or whoever, another massive company, imagine trying to kind of forecast what you're going to be spending your money on 5 years out, because
Mm.
it's moved. The game is moving so fast that your forecasts, like your capex, your R&D forecasts. Good luck. It's like proper finger
Mm.
in the air. Oh, we'll just take a guess. Well, we're just going to put the number down and guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's akin to, going out for a few drinks in Mayfair on a Thursday night. Do you prioritize spending or do you prioritize efficiency of of drinks, right?
Little
I
bit of
mean, it's
option A, a little bit of
yeah,
option
yeah,
B.
a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I think that's definitely a story that we'll hear more about. And yeah, I mean, we put it out today, so if anyone wants to take a look at them, that's all groovy. And then in light of time, just the last thing I wanted to talk about was out today, core PCE,
Ah, yes, the Fed's
which
preferred measure of inflation.
absolutely,
I feel
it's a
like
lovely little catchphrase.
the thing is, that's the thing. Anytime anyone says PCE, I almost like it's almost like Tourette's. I have to say the
Yeah.
Fed's preferred measure of inflation.
I mean, it's very true. And the reason why I feel like it's actually a big deal for today is one is when you look at the positioning and to end the week, particularly in the equity space, like where, as I said, they're clinging on for dear life at the moment. Um, is that if we get,
Twitchy
I mean,
bum.
twitchy bum time. It's forecasted year over year to come in at 2.6%, which would be a drop from the 2.8% previously, which would be the lowest level since last June if it happened. However, I think given the mood of the markets, The risk is really that if you see a 2.7%, 2.8%, or hey, 2.9%, I think the market's going to get a lot more spooked out by a print that comes in at the same level as last month,
Yeah,
rather than if you
exactly that, exactly.
yeah
I
if you get
completely agree.
if you get a 2.6% consensus print, which in theory is a good thing, I don't think the market's going to be in the mood to be celebrating this afternoon. So I actually think there's quite a big release that will really sort of dictate where we go to close out the week.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Completely agree.
Mm.
I'll be in the pub.
Yeah. 36
Someone,
minutes is a long time away.
someone do me a favor. Someone WhatsApp me the figure when it comes out.
So that's all from me today. I mean, Jay, anything you want to chip in on? Anything I've missed?
So one of the stories that kind of was yesterday and last night was, well, once again on the tariff
Michael
situation,
Brown
but
buying a beer.
between
That was the story.
was the tariffs on China, which another
10 and
10%
10, yeah.
were 10 and 10 were added to China, which the indices were down a couple of percent when I checked this morning. I'm not sure how they would have closed the Asia session. But yeah, it's another story in the tariff this week, kind of towards China, which I was thinking with Trump is a funny one because I feel like each week he picks someone that he wants to
Yeah, right.
use as his headline, and he goes off like 1 week it's Trudeau, and then it's Macron, and then it's Starmer, and now it's President Xi
Yeah, I
again.
like to think like he's got a wall with like the world leaders on it. He just closes his eyes and throws a dart and say, right, this is who I'm picking on today.
Yeah, shuffles a deck of cards and
Yeah, that's it.
one assigned to each person. But I think with the China story and quite a few of the other some emerging markets as well, like we've seen capital start to flow out of the US into Europe and China, and I do think if we get any pullbacks in the China situation through the tariffs, there's probably a good point to start looking to allocate to China if you haven't already. That would be my take away from it. That any dips in China on these headlines could be
do
worth
you know what?
having a
As
tactical eye from.
myself and Mr. Brown say quite regularly, it's like I can't bring no matter how bullish I am on like China stocks, I just can't ever bring myself to invest in it because you just don't know what's going to
Yeah,
happen. Also, as Mr. Brown rightly always says, you think you own Chinese equities, but do you really own Chinese equities? And it's so true. But the thing, what I noticed, Reed, just to like kind of go on from like your point there, is there's been some like institutional notes coming out of the past few weeks where it feels like on the street they've got, I think it was JP Morgan, I'm sure it was them, put out a note last week, I think it was, and it was gone, rather than be I can't remember how they worded it. It was like rather than just be involved in Chinese equities, they actually came out and said actually we now think it's a time to invest more into Chinese equities and get long Chinese equities. But the thing is, we've seen so many false dawns on Chinese equities. There's so many times this has got to be the moment. This now it's going up. When we survived the Evergrande and all that, that feels like a lifetime ago. When China was basically going to go bankrupt on Evergrande, no one's even talking about them anymore. But yeah, I get what you're saying. In principle, I agree with what you said, Jay, about it does feel like now's the time to be picking up on dips, but good luck.
yeah, it's fair point. But yeah, my maybe not China as a whole. I think I'd be focused more on like China tech
Yeah,
names
yeah.
because I do think they need to spend to compete with the US.
Yeah.
It's just the next stage of a
No, I completely agree.
trade war.
Yeah, and just
But yeah, that would be my only other thoughts and stories this week.
yeah, no, the only I'd throw in that was something we spoke about last Friday, which was Alibaba's tie-up with Apple for those
Oh
domestic
yes, yeah,
iPhones,
yeah.
which I know I was uber bullish on
Yes,
and
you
still
were.
am. Like that's a big deal for many reasons we spoke about last week. So yeah, I mean in terms of individual names, I know we have allocations to Alibaba, and like I think I think you're much better playing China tech actively than passively. Yeah,
Yes.
but that's my 2 cents on it.
No, completely agree as usual with both of you.
Mm.
Absolutely.
A pleasure. Well, I think that
Cool.
covers us off nicely, actually, in just under 30 minutes.
And I think we banged it on the time as well. Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely nailed it. Well, guys, thank you as always. Thank you so much for the Friday fix. Thank you for a couple of beers last night. And listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
Cheers.